Hello everyone, this is Children of Morta. Now, playing lots of games, doing something like this, and going through all sorts of varied genres and just trying out as many things as you can find, you sometimes will come across something that is just really special, that feels a bit different, that sticks with you, that is the kind of game that you're excited to actually come back to every time you stop playing for the day and you think of all the things that you want to do next time, that sort of thing. And for me, Children of Morta is exactly that sort of experience. It is an action RPG that takes place in a very dark fantasy world, but a little bit more on that later. Now, you see, it has a type of story that I usually don't really get on with that easily. The sort of story that's based around family and the idea of a family sort of sticking together through hardship to overcome something horrible. And in a fantasy setting, that something horrible is usually like an ancient evil or something like that. And oftentimes, just for my personal tastes, that sort of like very family-based sort of character growth is just not really something that I'm all that interested in. It's something that I don't generally get a whole lot out of, as opposed to some other types of narratives. The whole family-based thing is usually not for me, but for some reason, this game does it in such a way that's very different from what I'm used to, and it really actually made me enjoy it, which I think should speak to the actual quality of the story, that it's taking the steps of a type of story that I don't normally really have a lot of enjoyment in personally, but it made me enjoy it a lot, and it made me want to keep coming back to see what would happen next. So you are in, as I mentioned, a very dark world, and you play the Bergsons, who are a family of guardians, more or less, that are trying to... Well, it's sort of like your ancestral charge to guard this mountain. You're at the base of Mount Morta, as it's called, hence the name of the game. And up there in the mountain is a deity that is really not a very nice individual and will occasionally sprout forth this evil purple corruption that will spread down the mountain throughout the entire world at the base of it and basically consume everything. And it is your job as this family to actually take charge and root back this corruption and try and fight against the evil being at the top in order to save the world from its spread. And it is, as I mentioned, quite dark because the corruption is this very, it's really a pretty nasty thing. It tends to make people do very, very bad stuff. You come across lots of creatures that are, there are elements of like slavery, other types of like enslavement from some of the creatures and the people, and elements of child sacrifice, for instance. It's a very dark world is what I meant when I said dark fantasy. It's very, very heavy on the dark themes because of the stuff that the corruption makes the world into. It's a very twisted place. And that is sort of your job, of course, as this family, or the sort of light in the darkness that is meant to shine bright and beat all of it back and save this area from it. But you have your own problems as well, and I think that's one of the things that actually made the story all that more interesting to me, was that the family members, despite being like very good individuals, they're also not like paragons of humanity that are just really good at everything and like permanently heroes, basically, with no flaws whatsoever. They all have their own flaws, and they're all very, very imperfect individuals. And this will come out as you go through the game, with each character getting different points of development as you play them or as you unlock them or what have you, and showing you the sorts of things that they struggle through and the various things that they're trying to overcome in their personal lives, as well as the bigger picture of the whole corruption thing. There's even a sort of your home, your actual ancestral home at the base of this mountain, that you go back to as like a safe hub after every mission, whether you lose or win. And you can actually click on the individual family members and other characters in order to actually have them say something, and they actually interact to various bits of story, even like small side story bits and things that have happened in the last run. They'll all have something to say about it, which is a really nice little bit of detail. The world itself, as well as all the characters within it, do change even from very small events, and they will actually comment on that. Now, I should also mention that the game actually has no normal speech from the characters themselves. All of their dialogue is actually silent normally. When you are in that safe zone, you can click on them and they'll have subtitles as to what they say, but their actual dialogue, them actually speaking to each other, is not actually voiced. Instead, there's a narrator that sort of voices everyone and gives you a sort of general idea of what's being said and what's happening, which is kind of neat. It makes you outside of playing as them, when you're just like a cursor on the screen, it kind of makes you like an observer, basically. And you're being told the story and being shown the story, and then you actually play the story when you're in the shoes of each individual family member, but when you're outside of that, you are watching it and it's being narrated to you, which is a neat little thing. Actually reminds me a lot of Bastion and Transistor, both because it is just a really solid action RPG like those games, and also because the story is presented mostly through narration, very, very good narration, and this overall story building and things sort of happens slowly as various bits are revealed in these narrated passages, and as you find various things around the world that the narrator will comment on during gameplay and stuff like that. It's actually a really cool way of doing things, and it definitely brings to mind games like that, although it isn't done exactly like those games. It just is reminiscent of that sort of style, you could say. The gameplay itself takes on a very enjoyable action RPG sort of idea with this top-down isometric style of like 2D projected view that if you've played anything like Bastion or Transistor or something like that, you're very much familiar with how this works. And each family member, and there are 6 different members you can play as, 6 different characters, has very much their own play style. You are encouraged for gameplay reasons and for narrative reasons, which are actually tied together pretty well, which I like, to actually play more than one character. So there are 2 main things that actually make you want to play more than one character. For one, every character levels up, of course, and as they level up, they'll get skill points to spend on active and passive skills to make themselves stronger. It's a very action RPG system, very familiar to any of you who ever played one. But there's also in the skill tree, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the whole tier system, where once you like spend a certain number of points on the first tier, the second one will open up with more powerful abilities and then whatnot, and that's how you sort of advance through the tree. This game has that. However, when you unlock a new tier, it also unlocks a family-wide passive that is unique to that particular family member, and it will affect everyone else as well. And this is one of the ways that the game encourages you to not just find one character that you like and stick with them, but to actually play multiples, because strengthening one character actually ends up strengthening the whole family. They will all get stronger because of these passes that you unlock. For instance, the very first one that the main character, or I suppose you could say the main character, the one that you start with, John, Sword and Shield user, gets is a family-wide health bonus, which is of course extremely useful to have. It just flat out makes everyone have more health. That's very nice. And you can get more complicated, more fancy ones later on, like for instance, my favorite character, Lucy, she's a mage, very fragile, but lots of distractionary abilities and things like that you would expect from like a fast sort of mage. And one of her skills is a clone that she can leave behind, sort of afterimage of herself, that will attract enemy attention to keep them away from her for a moment. And believe it's her second to last passive that she unlocks in this tree will actually make her come into any other like family members run and actually set a clone down for them if you dodge an attack just before it hits you. It has like a couple minute cooldown, you can't spam it, but if you ever get one of those moments where you like very narrowly sort of like perfect dodge an attack, she will actually appear and give a clone out to help distract enemies for you for a minute. So these are very, very useful kind of character defining passives that have to do with what they can do as a character, and they can apply to other characters, which is really cool. The other way the game actually encourages you to play more than one person, and I say encourage, in this case it's more of like a very firm push. There's a corruption mechanic, as of course the corruption spreads throughout the world. It also does affect the family members themselves. They're not immune to its effects. So if you play the same character in multiple runs in a row without a break, they will actually begin to get a corruption fatigue, and their maximum health will be decreased. So you need to switch them out for someone else to let them rest for a while so that their maximum health can recover. And this builds up very quickly to like unplayable levels. You have to switch around. If you can't just ignore it, which is good, or else what would be the point of it existing? For instance, if you play a character like 3 times too many in a row, they'll have like 60% of their health gauge just gone, and you will be playing them in a very fragile state, basically. And you'll have to wait a couple of runs for them to rest up and recover from all that, and the worse that you actually make it before you start resting, the longer they have to rest. So this is why you're encouraged to play around this and play multiple characters, which is great. And that is another method of the storytelling and the narrative actually matching the gameplay that this game really is very good at. The whole family becoming stronger because you play each of them is an important part of the whole narrative, with the whole, family working together to overcome the odds sort of thing. So I like that they actually made that part of the gameplay by giving you all of these very powerful passive abilities that the family can get to support each other in between runs. And I just think that's another reason that this sort of story is actually effective for me this time, because they've made such a sort of narrative and gameplay bridge to make both of them affect each other in a way that actually feels more meaningful, I suppose. There are also several different bits of sort of character progression. The gameplay itself is actually a bit rogue-lite-ish. It is not one of those. It does have a linear progression of levels and bosses that you fight, just like a traditional action RPG, but the levels themselves are done in sort of roguelite-esque runs, where you will be on a given run with a sort of randomly generated version of that particular dungeon that you're going into, with different possible items and artifacts and usable relics and passives and stuff you can find in that run that only apply to that particular run, and whether you actually win or not, you will go back to the sort of hub to upgrade and stuff after that, and if you actually are able to win, you will get to a boss, beat that boss, and then you will move on to the next area. So it doesn't work like, you know, like Isaac or Gungeon or something like that, where you repeat bosses and you repeat runs. It does have a linear progression where you go from one level to the next. So it has an interesting sort of hybrid gameplay style when it comes to like an action RPG meets these sort of rogue-lite elements without actually being one of those games entirely. Although the upgrade system is very reminiscent of one of those. You have a sort of a smithy back at home, your Uncle Ben, who can upgrade your characters in various ways, and these are permanent upgrades. You will spend the gold that you get in run to actually purchase these. Everything from, like, you know, more health and more attack damage to more movement speed, more rage gain. Everyone has a rage ability, which is sort of like a limit break kind of thing, and some other things like that. And eventually you will also find other sort of unlockable story elements that will provide more gameplay mechanics, which is kind of neat, actually. You don't really start with all of the mechanics available to you. You will encounter events and story bits and things that will, just through exploration, that will actually unlock more of them. Like, for instance, you may find early on in the game a sort of mural on the wall that your grandma will come down and read for you, and it will unlock the ability to use runes. An entirely new sort of character upgrading gameplay mechanic that you didn't have access to before you found that, and runes are really cool. They are things that will attach to one of your abilities and alter it in some way. They have a sort of durability where each time you use the ability they're attached to, they will sort of take damage, and eventually they'll fall off and you'll lose that rune. And once you unlock the ability to use runes, you can actually spend money to upgrade their durability to make them last longer. Runes are really cool, and some of the extra bits of like family power that you unlock from leveling a character up will actually provide new runes based on the abilities of that character for everyone else. Also, you've got to mention the art style. It is very, very colorful, and it's just very dense pixel art. It's very, very good pixel art. It's the kind of pixel art that has a lot of attention to detail in it. That's what I mean by dense. There's like a lot going on in any given scene, and there's a lot of details to find. I've never seen, I don't think, or at least I very rarely see, a pixelized character that actually has so much emotion and personality in it. Even though its face is only like a 10 by 10 grid of pixels, it actually displays a lot of emotion and stuff like that that you can actually read, which is of course important because the dialogue is technically silent in the game, so that means the movements and actions of characters need to have some personality. They need to carry some sort of meaning to them that you can read just from watching them in order to be able to connect with what's going on. And the art style in this game is just extremely good. It is very, very pretty. Some of the larger vistas, like the big foresty areas and stuff like that, are really pretty. The really like horrible ruined aspects look really gritty and detailed, and it really brings the whole corruption thing into view. And then you have areas like this in the background right now that are very barren, but still have a ton of detail and some really interesting bits, like all these weird bits of machinery and these like turrets and weird like explosive launching things in the ground and some stuff like that that just add a ton of detail and personality to the areas and the characters. So the art style of this game is an extremely good aspect of it, and it's something that actually carries a lot of value with it in terms of how the narrative is actually meant to go. And really, I suppose you could say that's kind of how the whole game is. It carries a lot of narrative and gameplay sort of bridging mechanics, where a lot of the elements of gameplay match with what the narrative is trying to tell you, and it actually makes the story feel a lot more interactive, and the actual family members feel a lot more well characterized than you might expect because of this really good meshing of story and gameplay. Something that you don't actually see as often as I would like to say, and to this kind of quality. It's just an extremely good game, and I wholeheartedly recommend it to anyone that likes action RPGs or likes roguelites, even though it's not technically one of them, that likes even just very specific experiences like Bastion or Transistor or games like that. It's really, really good at what it does, and what it does is a lot of fun and has kept me interested the entire time. There's a lot of game mechanics here that you will sort of unlock, and you can easily sort of slot yourself into and make new goals each time you play for things that you want to find or you want to upgrade. There are like unlockable NPCs, there are 6 characters to play, and there are lots of reasons to switch it all around and pay attention to the story. It is really, really good. It's a very solid game, and I highly recommend it. It is going to be available at the time of putting up this video tomorrow, Tuesday, September 3rd, for the kind of oddly specific price of $22. Which I think is an extremely fair price, of course, for the amount of content that this actually offers and the amount of replayability and things that it has with all of the characters and the upgrades and all that stuff. It's it's a very solid experience, and it looks and sounds awesome as well. I haven't mentioned the soundtrack, the actual music and the sound effects and the various like bits of little sound stings as important character and story developments happen and stuff like that. The sound design is very, very good. If I had to like reach for a negative point, the only negative thing I've actually had happen was a bug in which I died to a boss at the same time as one of my ranged attacks killed the boss, so we both died at the same time, which caused the game to crash and me to lose the run, so I lost all of the levels, the gold, and the NPC unlock and other progression items and stuff that I found in that run, and I had to repeat it. That's a very specific bug though, and I expect that they'll probably be able to hammer that down pretty soon. So yeah, that is Children of Morta, a very good experience that is quickly becoming one of my my favorites of the year so far. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you liked this video, feel free to hit the like button, and if you did not like this video, there is a button for that as well, and please do feel free to tell me why so I can improve my videos. Thank you guys very much for watching again, and I'll see you next time.